Biblical Greek. This will be a very short discussion, an introduction to the study that it's been on my mind for some time to do, and it is about the Biblical Greek, where it came from. Um, as we all know, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. The New Testament, it's been arguing. It's been an argument among some scholars, but the truth of the matter is that we have evidence only of a Greek original for the New Testament. So, as far as we know, the New Testament was written in Greek. What you see here is a reproduction of a Greek manuscript, and this is the way the Greek language was written in ancient days. This is the Greek alphabet, capital letters and small letters. Quite interesting. This is what we usually find in the critical editions of the Bible. So, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, and some portions of it was written in Aramaic. Then, at a specific time, it was felt. This is the first page of the Gospel of John in Greek. At a specific time, it was felt the need to translate the Old Testament in Greek. Why? It may seem like something simple, but why should the New Testament be translated into any language, the Old Testament? Because the Old Testament was the Bible of the Hebrews, of the Jews. So it was written in their language, and there was no need to translate. But something happened in history. This man here you see in the picture, his name is Alexander the Great. He conquered the whole world, and he was, for all purposes, a Greek. He was Macedonian, to be more exact, but his culture, language, ideals, everything in him was in love, was for the Greeks. He united the Greeks against the Persians. The Greeks were divided into small towns, and he united all of them to go against the Persians. And in basically 10 years, because he became king at the age of 23 when he took his father's place, and then after that, in only 10 years, it conquered the whole world. Of course, he lived only to see that what he had done, but not to enjoy it. He died at the age of 33. He was very young. And he left an empire. But most of all, he left the seeds of the growth and spread of the Greek thoughts, ideals, philosophy, and language everywhere in the world. Just like today, English with the empire of the British with the British Empire that basically conquered the whole world. It caused the British culture and the British language, the English language, to be spoken almost everywhere and become known and used everywhere in the world. At that time, the same happened with Greek. Greek was divided into different dialects. One prevailed over the other, and so on, depending on the level of the authors who wrote in that dialects. What we study today here in our high schools in Italy, for example, is the Attic dialects. There are other dialects as well, but we're not interested in that. We are interested in a form of the language which is called Koine. The Greek Koine was the kind of Greek that was used throughout the world after the conquest of Alexander the Great. At that time, everyone in the world, for trading purposes and other daily useful interaction among people, they were using Greek, like we use English today. This picture gives you the idea of how huge, how big was the empire of Alexander the Great. What we are interested in is the fact that Alexander took Egypt. You see here, Alexandria. It was a town, this town became so famous in the ancient days because it had the largest library in the whole known world. And of course, it was in Greek. There are some things about the library which should be spoken of in detail, but the main thing, the main idea is that this place collected uh, as many, and the kings in this place collected as many books as they could. And so they had a huge number of books. Of course, we're not talking about thousands and thousands or millions. We're talking only about, I think it was estimated something around 10,000. But of course, it's a large number. I don't think you have 10,000 books in your home, huh? So it was very large. At a specific time, the king, Ptolemaeus, decided that he wanted, and he was a Greek, because after Alexander the Great died, his generals divided his all the lands, and they took portions, and Ptolemaeus and his descendants took part of Egypt, and they became pharaohs. So Ptolemaeus Philadelphus, he wanted in 250 BC, he wanted the Torah, the law of Moses, the five books of Moses, to be translated from Hebrew into Greek. And there's a story about this, sort of a legend, sort of a nice story, that these people worked at it. The people who worked at it, they were actually 72 wise people, wise Jewish scholars, and they came up with a translation and so on. The truth of the matter and the fact of the matter is this, uncontrovertible. The five books of Moses were translated into Greek in 250 BC. What kind of Greek did these translators use? Of course, Koine. Even the Jews began to use this translation of the Bible. This is very important to understand because as many Jews might have lived in the nation of Israel, there would have been probably even more living outside of the borders of Israel. And in Egypt, there was a very large community of Jewish people that would have benefited from the translation of the Bible into Greek, so they could understand it even better. So Koine was used to translate the Old Testament, the Torah. Was it easy? No, it wasn't. It was very complicated, very difficult. There were some words in the Hebrew who had no correspondent into the Greek language. For all purposes, the Hebrew language grew with the faith of Israel, and its terminology and the vocabulary it developed was so intimately connected to the Jewish religion that it became is sort of being all of it religious. It was perfect to express the terms of the Jewish religion, of the Hebrew, of the faith of the Hebrews, of the Jews. But Greek wasn't. Greek was a totally different phenomena, completely different. Koine was another phenomena. And the thing is this, Koine was a language spoken by foreign speakers. That's the same when non-English people, non-English speaking people, not native speakers of the English language start using the English language. This is what happened. It happened in America when the Constitution of the United States was written, and I might be saying something crazy. When the Act of Independence, the paper with which the Americans wanted to be independent from the and did not want to be a British colony anymore, and rebelled against Great Britain. At that time, they were not native speakers. Those who wrote that document, maybe the English to them was their second or maybe third language. I don't know. They were Europeans. They were not British. At least not all of them. I don't know. The American history don't throw stones at me for this. At the same time, those who were using now Greek were not native speakers. It was not their language. The Bible was not translated by Greeks into Greek. Probably the Greeks had no interest in knowing the Hebrew language, so this could have never happened. You must remember that Israel was a small country. Nothing compared to Egypt or other countries. Even now, Macedonia and Greece were the largest, the most, the biggest empire of the time. So Israel was nothing, and probably they didn't have much interest in the faith of the Jews. The thing is that the king wanted to have his library complete, so he said, "I'm going to have this book translated into Greek as well, and complete my collection of books." So Koine was used and adapted for the purpose of translating. This is a picture of Alexandria. It was a huge town in Egypt. It was huge. Beautiful. So Koine could be used. It was in the hands of these Jews and adapted to interpret the Jewish Hebrew thoughts of the Bible into another language. This was a revolution in the Jewish religion. You know, since up until then, it was only interpreted in the Hebrew language, but now, thoughts, ideas, faith, names of God, everything what had to be translated into another language, and the language was Koine. But remember this: there were Jews doing this. They were translating the Bible, which was so Hebrew and Semitic, into a language which was not Semitic at all, and into words the Jewish words were to be translated into a term with a language that had a different terminology. There was such an incredible difference between the thought of the Jews, the exclusivism of the Jewish thought, and the syncretism of the Greek thoughts and the Greek philosophers and all the books that they had written about philosophy and stuff. So it in this moment now, starting now, the first steps into biblical Greek were taken. It wasn't Koine anymore. It was the Greek language that had to interpret the Jewish language to interpret the Jewish faith. So it specifically served this purpose. And to me, it is quite clear that it is not Koine anymore, or maybe